Welcome to Ballot Meridian election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Julie Dunmeyer. Joining us for this candidate interview is Dan Opsommer, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Julie, and thanks to the folks here at HOMTV for everything that you do.
Would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Dan Opsommer, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee, currently a planning commissioner here in the township, and professionally I work down at the Capitol. Serve as the Chief of Staff to a member of the Michigan House of Representatives, Jim Townsend. And in the community, I'm active in the Hazlitt Beautification Association, Sierra Club, the Mid-Michigan Autism Association. I'm also the current president of the Kiwanis Club of East Lansing. So look forward to the interview.
Thank you. Each trustee candidate will be asked a standard list of 10 questions. Let's get started with question number 1. What qualifications do you bring to the position of township trustee?
So a lot of community background. I was born and raised here in the area, very familiar with the community. And then obviously working on the Planning Commission and serving on the Planning Commission gives you a great depth of knowledge. Most of what the Township Board deals with is land use decisions, and that's what the Planning Commission deals with exclusively. So right now we're working on an update to the master plan, for instance, and it's very likely that the new board will be working to adopt that and to actually implement the plan. So having familiarity with that plan is crucial. That's a great depth of knowledge that that we need on the board moving forward. And then just public policy experience in general. Professionally working at the Capitol, I work on public policy every day. Amending state laws, I do all the policy work for the office. And most of what we can do at the township level is either permitted or restricted under state law or under our state constitution. So it's critical to have a understanding of what we can and cannot do here at the township level.
Okay, question number 2. What major changes do you believe residents would like to see in the near future?
Well, going door to door, I've visited with thousands of residents, and I find, namely, residents are quite content with a lot of the services that we provide, whether it's police and fire and EMS, parks and trails, our park system. I find that people are very happy with, and we have a overlap millage right now that's being utilized to fund infrastructure improvements in our parks, not just the ongoing maintenance and preservation. So a lot of things, and obviously our school districts, a lot of residents move here and locate here for the school systems. So a lot of services I find residents are quite content with. Some areas where I do find concern would be local road maintenance and preservation, namely neighborhood roads. Obviously we've had some bridge projects that overlapped and caused transportation issues as well. So road funding and local road maintenance and preservation is an issue. The county performs that work, but we do have a township millage, and we have dedicated in the past general fund dollars to help maintain our roads and supplement that local millage. The other thing that is less known to residents but is a cause for concern is the pension liabilities that the township has. So that's another issue that really is going to have to be tackled. And then I would say the master plan update. In so much as residents are concerned about vacancies in shopping centers and things of that nature, and we've really focused on 3 core areas in the community that need some revitalization and they need some more vibrancy. Carriage Hills by Lake Lansing and Hagedorn. So that shopping center is a focus area where we're trying to create a vision for that area for years to come. And so as projects come before us in those areas, we've already thought through, how do we want the sidewalks to work? How do we want that development to interact with our existing trails and park systems? What kind of commercial and retail do we think can go there? What kind of dining options are viable based on the market? So we've actually studied both the regional market, Tri-County, and we've studied the Meridian Township market, and so we have an understanding of what we think is viable. So I would say that those are really the 3 issues that kind of come to mind and come up frequently in visiting with residents.
All right, question number 3. If elected, what steps would you take to address residents' transportation concerns, including Ready Ride services and CATA's proposed bus rapid transit project?
Certainly. Good question, and this is obviously something that the board has been deliberating on quite frequently, and there's been a lot of community input at recent board meetings. for Ready Ride, there are efficiencies, some that are currently being, I would say, enacted into the Ready Ride system. We need to make the system more responsive to changes in schedules for residents. And we also need to make sure that we're cutting down on the late cancellations that prohibit, that ride going to somebody else that's in need. So I think greater efficiencies, some that are already being implemented and some that we still have to work through and get a grasp on. And then extending services is a discussion point that's being had. I really think that that's something that needs more thorough vetting. The board recently contemplated putting a millage increase on the ballot, but I don't think we yet understand what the extension of services should be, what the cost would be, and therefore what the millage rate would be, would need to be to provide those services. And then ultimately residents would have to weigh in, and there would have to be a vote on that millage. So that's an issue that needs some more thought and deliberation. There's been talk of a transportation committee. That might be one course that we could take. So I'm interested in working on that issue, and I think we need to get further into that. With the bus rapid transit project, that one is a little bit more complex because the Ready Ride service is something that we provide here at the township. We have a township millage that the board put on the ballot originally and residents approved. Whereas with the bus rapid transit project, we're discussing a project that's outside of our jurisdiction. However, I do think the board can play a more active role in negotiating that project. Right now, it seems to be dealt with almost in a black and white realm. You're either for or you're either against it. I think most reasonable and good solutions come from somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the gray area. Some examples of improvements that could be made in the township portion of the bus rapid transit proposed project would be additional bus stops at Park Lake, at Opsommer Road. There currently are not bus stops located there. And that would actually balance the east-west travel distance on foot between bus stops. That's been an objection from the community, is the reduction in pedestrian foot traffic travel time to bus stops by eliminating some. So if you added those two, another one would be the Meyer bus stop. That's one that I think if the township board took it upon itself to be more active in, they could help facilitate discussions with CATA about relocating that to closer to the Meyer entrance. But that's actually going to be a park and ride. So right now, the bus stop just drops off residents and then picks up residents right in, basically in front of the Opsommer Meyer location. This will be a park and ride. So you could actually just park your car and then take the bus system as it's proposed anywhere down to the Capitol Loop and anywhere in between. So those are discussions that I think the board needs to be more engaged and active in actually improving the project. And there's a lot of other areas and issues that need to be vetted and worked on. But it can't strictly be a black and white, hands-off approach if we want to create positive outcomes for neighborhoods, residents, businesses, and the region and community as a whole.
Okay, question number 4. Meridian Township's branding campaign is in its final stages. Once revealed, how do you plan to champion the new brand?
Good question, and we don't quite know what that brand is going to look like. I'm interested to see what the consultant has come up with. I think part of, it's really incorporating that brand into everything that we do. So it could just be one instance would be the master plan update. We've already discussed adding that brand to the master plan after we establish it. We're kind of working on those two things simultaneously. We're also working on a new website simultaneously. So, some of those things kind of have to come together at the conclusion of that work. And I think if we incorporate that brand into everything we do, another example might be wayfinding for our trail systems, which really just means finding your way. And folks that aren't necessarily familiar with our trail system, it could be a mobile app that they access on their phone so that they could locate our parks and our trails and find unique ways to get to and from different destinations. And I would hope that the branding that we come up with and we arrive at, takes into account all of the unique features that we have in our community. we kind of have these unique hamlet or villa areas like downtown Hazlet, downtown Okemos, and the Carriage Hills area that we're working on creating a vision for. We also have 4 school districts. We also have 4, we have more than 4 zip codes, but we have 4 cities that people use for their addressing and for their mail. So we kind of have unique identifiers throughout the community between the Williamston, Hazlet, Okemos, and East Lansing dynamic that we encompass as a township. So I'm interested to see what they come up with, but I think we want to really build off of the unique features of our community and what we're really good at. We're really good at trails, and we're working on a new trail project in connection between Lake Lansing Park, which is a county and regional asset, and MSU, which is obviously one of the biggest regional employers and perhaps our biggest regional asset. So.
Okay, question number 5. What essential functions of the township would you like to see improved and why?
I think this kind of gets back to the my response to the first question. Obviously, local road maintenance and preservation is an issue, and we have to improve that. We've got to supplement our local road millage to make sure that we're adequately maintaining our neighborhood streets, and then the pension funding, which I touched on briefly. And that's an issue that every community is facing right now. It's not unique to Meridian Township, and I think probably the first step is having the, it's actually MERS, the Michigan Employee Retirement Services, come and deliberate with our board more frequently. They were here in 2015 for a presentation to update the board, but I really think on an ongoing basis they need to come back annually. And I think kind of in similar train of thought with the transportation committee or commission that we're discussing for Ready Ride and CATA and public transportation and vehicular and pedestrian and bicycle transportation, we need to look at some kind of financial health review team and tap into some of the regional assets that we have here. East Lansing just created their own financial health team or committee, whatever you want to call it, to begin examining. And it's not just residents, it's some of the regional folks that have really good experience in this area, like Eric Scorzoni, who just left MSU to go work for the state, or will be working for the state, to try to help communities through these issues. So, and I think we need to use the state, and there are some options that are available to us under state law that we're going to have to deliberate on and decide on.
Okay, question number 6. How does your campaign best reflect Meridian Township's vision statement as written in the board policy manual, which states to achieve and maintain the highest quality of life for our residents?
Well, I talk a lot about quality of life, and I think, no matter what we're talking about, we're always talking about quality of life. Everything is very intimate when you're talking about your own community and the decisions that are made in your own community. So, like we talked about, we do a lot of things well, whether it's our parks and trails and our school districts, but we need to make sure that we're supporting those features, make sure that we're maintaining our park system and making the proper improvements, getting the trail connection done between Michigan State University and Lake Lansing Park would be another big one. And then obviously pension funding is a quality of life issue. We have so many tremendous services here because we have tremendous talent here in this building. The folks that work on our parks and work on our trails in the engineering department, and HOMTV and all of you great folks, we're able to have all those tremendous assets because of our pension system. So we have to fulfill those obligations. And then, road maintenance and preservation, and obviously revitalizing some of those business districts creates a quality of life. So if you have a more vibrant business district and you have more opportunities available to you for dining and shopping and retail within walking distance, that enhances quality of life. There's a lot of neighborhoods that are in walking distance and adjacent to those 3 areas. So I think all three or four of those items really kind of get at enhancing the quality of life here in the community in areas where we're short, and then areas, maintaining the quality of life in areas where we're obviously strong on parks and trails and likewise.
Okay, question number 7. The township, much like other municipalities across the state, is facing huge pension liabilities. What direction would you like to see the board take on pension funding if elected?
Certainly. So I talked about creating a financial health review team of some nature, kind of open to, if I'm elected, what do the other board members think? What do we want to do? But we really have to tap into expertise in this area. It's such a complex issue because our pension fund is always investing in the marketplace. And there's a constant balancing act. When you look at the Great Recession and what happened in 2008, our pension fund actually lost 30%. Now, is that good or bad? That sounds really bad, and it was. But times were difficult for everyone in 2008. So actually, if you look at other pension funds throughout the state that weren't managed by MERS and the management team that we have, they lost on average 40 to 50%. So relative to other pension funds, we actually weathered that storm much better. So, but you really have to have that expertise. So having MERS come in frequently and having a financial health review team that can help us figure out what we need to do on a year-by-year basis. This is, in all likelihood, this should be a 3-decade goal. So we need to identify where do we need to be 3 decades from now. And I think part of the issue is that we haven't been quick enough to get the bad information. Life expectancy is changing. That's changing costs to the pension fund. And a lot of other things are changing. The marketplace is changing. In some instances, we've predicted a greater return on investment than we can rely on in the marketplace. So we have to be very vigilant about being honest to ourselves about what forecasts are likely. What return on investment are we actually likely to receive? And we've got to make sure that we're updating life expectancy and other predictors that create fluctuations in the cost so that we know exactly where we need to be in 30 years, and then it's charting a course on how do you get there. So how do you make that work?
Okay, question number 8. How do you plan to strengthen relationships between the township and the business districts to promote growth?
Good question. And so one of the examples that I frequently give on the Planning Commission is, and this is really an issue that the DDA for downtown Okemos has been kind of deliberating on, but there's a shortage of parking down there. So we have a new restaurant that's going in, and there's concerns, that the parking issue could become even more intense and more demanding on what limited parking we have down there. If we want to make that a viable and vibrant area, one of the things that we have to have is shared use parking. When every business has to pay for their own parking, they have to pay for their own parking lot, they have to acquire the land, they have to pave it. We use a lot of real estate, and that's not a very big area. It's a small little village hamlet area, and to really maximize it and be able to bring in more businesses and to grow that area, you have to have public and shared parking so that the businesses, you take that off their hands, and we don't overpark the entire area. A bank is going to park for their peak hour. They're going to park for 5 p.m. when everybody's getting out of work, that 5 to 6 or 4 to 6 p.m. Little 2-hour window. And they have that parking lot 24/7. So what if they were just utilizing 30 spaces in a small parking garage or something like that? And then there's other infrastructure improvements that have to be utilized. We do have what's called a TIF capture. They can be controversial, but we have that in place with the downtown Okemos area. So if you have incremental growth in the property tax base there, that tax capture on that incremental growth could fund some infrastructure improvements. We need road resurfacing, curb, gutter, sidewalk enhancements. One issue that we ran into recently were the power lines that run through downtown Okemos, and that ran into an issue with a project that was proposed down there. And that's something that most downtown areas, your traditional walkable areas, the utilities are buried underground, and that provides for better opportunities for developing sites in the ideal manner. So there's a lot of things that we can do to support the business community, but it's really got to be a public-private partnership where folks are coming forward with projects that kind of mirror the vision that we're creating for those areas, and then we work together to make the finances work on some of the public enhancements. And the tax capture is one way that we can kind of help the business community, and we've got to resolve the parking areas. One other idea that I've talked about frequently during planning commission meetings and work sessions on the master plan is giving food trucks a more viable place to set up shop. So we've kind of envisioned, for instance, kind of a green space courtyard area for the downtown Hazlet area. And one idea would be there's on-street, curbside, parallel parking. You know, if we had water and electric hookups for food trucks, they could come in and hook up, and perhaps some of the permitting fees that they pay to the township to operate could go to support those improvements. And then they have a viable place to go, and you could have some outdoor food court and seating areas. I work down at the Capitol, and if you go in front of the Lansing City Hall, they have a very nice outdoor food court, and the food vendors will pull up on the corner of Capitol and Michigan Avenue, and it creates a nice environment where they can thrive. So we have food trucks that are coming in, but they're kind of setting up ad hoc and parking lots. So let's create a place for them to go, and ideally let's create a place in, you know, several places throughout the community where they can kind of go and set up shop.
Okay, question 9. What approach do you propose to address issues such as blight with underdeveloped and/or vacant properties within the township?
So I think that kind of gets into what we were just talking about with infrastructure improvements. That's one side of it. You know, if you want a walkable, areas like we've proposed for those areas, you need wide streetscapes, you need street trees, you need areas for outdoor patio seating without putting that straight on the business to put it out back or somewhere else where it would be less vibrant and less viable. But I think the vision that we've created is a good one, that and the market analysis that we've done that helps identify what kind of retail, commercial, and dining is viable in those areas. And each of those 3 unique areas is a benefactor, but it ultimately comes down to, you know, private property ownership and who owns that property, and whether or not someone can acquire it. But I do think, you know, for the small business perspective, like a craft brewery just opened in Meridian Township as an example, you know, if we can get folks to acquire properties in downtown Okemos or downtown Hazlet and help us realize the vision that we've created, it'll be a great opportunity for, you know, local small business owners that are looking to open, you know, unique business ventures, unique dining, unique craft breweries or things like that, where they're going to have like the ideal venue to open up shop, where they could have an outdoor eating area, and they're going to be in a walkable setting, and they're going to have, you know, businesses adjacent to them that help bring in foot traffic and help make it viable. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but I think if we're working together, and we did have some members of the development community come in and give us feedback on both the revitalization efforts for those areas and for the future land use map, which really designates, you know, what kind of uses do we want throughout most of the township. So we've kind of been proactive in reaching out to the development community and the business community on what would they like to see, what do they think is viable, and I think we received a lot of positive feedback on the plan that we've kind of envisioned at this point. Okay,
question 10, our last of the standard list of questions. What goals would you like to see the township accomplish in the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, obviously charting a course, a 30-year course on the pension funding is an issue. So I'd like to see that tackled within the next 5 years. There's still going to be an ongoing need to monitor and assess that situation. That'll be true for 20 or 30 years, but if we can at least chart the course and kind of give the blueprints over to the next board, I think that'll be beneficial. Getting the master plan adopted and beginning to implement it would be a good 5-year goal. Making sure that taking asset management on our local and neighborhood roads, identifying what percentages are in good, fair, or poor condition, first and foremost, and then actually monitoring our progress on maintaining and preserving local roads and making sure that we're meeting benchmarks. I would say that those are all probably the top 3 goals that I would envision, and then just the 4th would probably be the trail connector from MSU, and that might be a little bit beyond 5 years, but if we've got everything in place, right now that's likely to be a 3-phase project. So they'll work on the trail connection in 3 phases, kind of working northeast from MSU up to Lake Lansing Park. And then the other ones would just be maintaining what we're doing with police and fire and EMS. I do think we need our staffing levels for police, fire, and EMS are still below the 2008 level when the Great Recession hit. So we are in need of adding additional staffing and at least achieving, I think, that 2008 staffing level over the next 5 years.
All right, at this time, we've finished the standard list of questions with Dan Opsommer, who's a Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. We have some time remaining, and I have some follow-up questions, if you wouldn't mind.
Certainly.
For starters, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you would like to mention?
I think we touched on a lot of it, and I think that really covers most of it. I guess I would just share that the board has a lot of responsibilities, whether it's our collective bargaining agreements, the annual budget, transportation issues, as we've discussed, and the pension liabilities. So, we're always looking for input, and we're always looking for residents to join. A lot of the work that is done at the township level is actually done by volunteers that serve on the boards and commissions. We have the Communications Commission, we have the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. So, and residents are always encouraged to get involved and volunteer on one of the boards and commissions to help us tackle some of these issues, especially if something of particular nature stands out as an interesting subject for residents, or if they have expertise in that area. We obviously have a lot of residents that work at MSU and have unique experience, whether it's the Environmental Commission or Natural Resources Commission.
All right, and we have a few minutes remaining if you'd like to make a brief closing statement.
On that camera?
You can just look at me.
Okay. So again, my name's Dan Opsommer, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. And I'm doing my best to make myself accessible to you and to the residents in the community. You can visit my website at www.danopsommer, that's OPSOMMER.com. My cell phone and my email are there, so if I don't have the chance to visit with you at your home, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I hope to earn one of your 4 votes on Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Julie.
This has been a candidate interview with Dan Opsommer, Meridian Township Democratic candidate for trustee. I'm Julie Dunmeyer, inviting you to watch Ballot Meridian election coverage right here on HOMTV.